XLR-8. This Astroworld coaster took up a massive amount of space in the park, as well as a massive amount of space in my heart, as it rested in a tie for my #1 overall coaster for a few years while I was a kid. But just how special is this coaster really? Find out in this review. XLR-8, or Accelerate, opened as the second aero suspended coaster and the second modern suspended coaster. The simple style of this layout wasn't an accident. As a kid who was scared of large drops on coasters, I loved the simple helix-focused nature of this ride. But after the original bat at Kings Island only lasted 3 years, Aero was looking for a less ambitious coaster to prove that a suspended coaster could work. XLR-8 would prove stable, as it lasted the length of Astroworld, and likely would have continued operating should the park have remained open. In 1984, the Big Bad Wolf also debuted at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, and Vekoma debuted their suspended coaster in 1987 with Dreamcatcher at Bob and John Land. Different models of suspended coasters, such as single rail suspended coasters, would then debut in the 1990s. For XLR-8, the trains featured traditional suspended trains that swung side to side while having over-the-shoulder restraints, and 4 people in a car. Newer suspended coasters, and even some old ones still operating, have been modified to have floorless seats. But I do appreciate the feel of these classic style trains like you'd find in Roller Coaster Tycoon. They also seem to allow for more suspended swinging motion, which is really awesome, as my experience at Vin Wonders taught me. Though some of this may rest more in the layout design than the cars themselves. These trains may not give the best type of experience, like say the trains on Freedom Flyer at Fun Spot Orlando, but they offered a nice mix that represented the history of this ride while making me feel very safe as a young kid scared of coasters. The big gimmick for this coaster came in 2002 when Astroworld decided to reverse a few cars towards the back to have the train run backwards. A decision so popular that backwards cars remain for the life of this coaster. As a simple, historic family coaster, adding a nice touch like backward seats for thrill seekers was really a terrific idea. However, as a kid, I never could bring myself to ride in these higher thrill seats. At the peak of the lift hill, you looked directly towards the Astrodome, and in its final years, Reliant, later renamed NRG, Stadium. As a kid, I didn't appreciate this, but as an adult and sports fan now, this really was a neat visual. Then, you went through a small turn and a straightaway drop that, for a suspended coaster, seems kinda long, before being whipped around another turn. This drop was very drawn out, so that you got very little drop feeling at all. At the time, I was scared of most big drops, and honestly, it's a surprise looking back to see that such a big first drop existed on this coaster, because you really didn't feel it at all. The whip around the next turn was nice, followed by a straightaway that allowed the suspended trains to really rock back and forth, before another turn to the right. Although slow in appearance, these turns and elements allowed the trains to get speed and show off the suspended nature of the seats. Similar elements at lower speeds on Dreamworld Sky Coaster play really well, and these delivered enjoyable but mild elements. Then you sped into downward helix turns, the first to the right, the second to the left. These helixes are okay, but likely didn't deliver too much other than just being nice turns on a coaster, which really were my favorite things at the time. After you make a 180-degree turn to the right that banked upwards to a straightaway, sapping some of your speed, but giving you some of that nice rocking back and forth, before a slow turn to the left into the second lift hill. This just has a small turning drop, followed by a straightaway to let you rock. before a downward helix, with a straightaway after as well, followed by another downward helix, this time with a directional change to the right at the end, which led you into a straightaway, but sadly, it was the final brake run, so you didn't get too much swaying except from the brakes. Overall, how good was XLR-8? Comparing this to suspended coasters I've ridden more recently, particularly the aforementioned Sky Coaster by Vekoma, I can really appreciate that the straightaways and directional changes would have allowed the cars to sway, which is the primary gimmick for these coasters. The downward helixes wouldn't have been that great compared with how I like coasters today. But again, at the time, having these mild elements on a coaster was fantastic for me, since I was not a fan of drops or really anything too crazy. The mix of helixes and sides of this coaster easily elevated to the top of my coaster rankings as a kid. Since it had no real drops, this allowed this coaster to not scare me while still offering an enjoyable and unique ride. It did not, at least for me, beat out fellow Astroworld coaster Mayan Mindbender. So I ranked both these coasters in a tie as my top coaster for many years. Looking back, it was a solid family coaster that allowed Aero to have proof of concept for their suspended coaster with a variety of mild elements. As a family coaster, this excelled at being unique, entertaining for all, and accessible for even those a little bit too scared to ride coasters. And honestly, my heart is pretty sad that we don't and likely will never see more coasters with a similar design. What are your memories of XLR-8? Would it be nice to see similar attractions in other amusement parks? Let me know. And as always, Cup Kun Krap.